There are places where the body ascends, but it is the soul that arrives first. In northern Portugal, on a silent hill, there is a path that was not made just for the feet but for the conscience. Each step holds a pain, each spring up here. And at the top, it is not just a church. There is a promise. This is the sanctuary of Bom Jesus do Monte, and this is yet another journey along sacred routes. Long before the monumental staircases, long before the tourists and the cameras, this mountain was already considered a place separate from the ordinary world. Since the 14th century, pilgrims have climbed here, driven by something difficult to explain, a spiritual attraction, a silent call that came from the stones, the air, the earth itself. It wasn't just devotion, it was the ancient idea, engraved in human DNA, that physical ascent brought man closer to the divine. The mountain was not chosen by chance. It was consecrated by the efforts of generations who poured out their prayers here. When you begin to climb the 581 steps of this monumental staircase, something strange happens. Pilgrims report a feeling of heaviness in the first flights, not just physical fatigue, but an inexplicable emotional oppression, as if each step were tearing away invisible layers of the soul. Science would call this psychological suggestion. But what if it were something more? What if this Baroque staircase, begun in 1723, was designed not only to glorify God, but to alter the consciousness of those who climb it? The heart of the sanctuary is not in the church. It's in the path leading to it. There are hundreds of zigzagging steps, but it's no ordinary climb. Here, each level represents a stage of human existence, a vertical journey through yourself. The route begins with the stations of the cross-silent chapels that narrate the final steps of Christ, not as a spectacle, but as a mirror. The message is clear. Before the light, there is weight. Before redemption, sacrifice. The pilgrim doesn't observe, he participates. And here's something unsettling. The chapels don't follow a logical, chronological order. The passion scenes are arranged in a way that creates narrative tension. You go up, expecting the crucifixion, but it appears when you least expect it, amidst betrayals and denials. It's almost cinematic, as if the 18th century architects understood that the spiritual journey is not linear, but full of setbacks and leaps. Did they know something about human psychology that we would only discover centuries later? Now stop and think. How many staircases do you know that were built to be climbed on your knees? Thousands of pilgrims, for centuries, have done exactly that. Bleeding knees, tears streaming down, prayers whispered with each step. The granite is worn, polished by the friction of entire generations in penance. When you touch these stones, you are touching crystallized pain, but also faith. And here's the paradox. Studies show that rituals of physical penance release endorphins, creating altered states of consciousness. So, is the religious ecstasy of pilgrims divine or neurochemical? Further up, something changes. You reach the stairway of the five senses. Monumental fountains represent sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Water flows endlessly, as if to say, the senses are necessary, but they need to be purified. Here, the body begins to be educated, and the ego slowly dissolves. But there's a detail that few notice. The fountains don't follow a logical order. Why did the architect choose this specific sequence? Is it merely Baroque aesthetics, or a spiritual code we haven't yet deciphered? The hydraulic system of Bom Jesus is a mystery in itself, built in a time without electric pumps. The sanctuary has maintained springs gushing for 3 centuries through a complex system of underground aqueducts that capture mountain springs. Modern engineers who have studied the project admit they do not fully understand how the pressure is maintained so uniformly. There are hydraulic calculations engraved in stones and the foundations that use golden ratios and mathematical sequences that would only be officially discovered decades later. Leave a comment. Do you believe that sacred places carry their own energy, or is it we who imbue them with meaning? And if you haven't yet subscribed to the Sacred Roots channel, do it now, because there's so much more to discover on the paths where the sacred and the inexplicable meet. Step inside one of the small octagonal chapels and whisper. Your voice returns multiplied, as if invisible presences were repeating your words. The acoustics were deliberately designed to create reverberation chambers that amplify whispers but muffle shouts. Did the Baroque architects understand advanced sound physics, or were they channeling something that transcends engineering? There are reports from visitors who have heard Gregorian chants echoing from the stones on silent mornings, when there was no living soul in the sanctuary. In the final section, the staircase of the three theological virtues, appears faith, hope, and charity. And here the incline changes drastically. The steps become steeper, almost impossible to climb without support. This is intentional. Virtue demands greater effort than the purification of the senses. They are not at the beginning of the path. They are at the end. Because, according to this profound symbolism, only after overcoming pain and mastering the senses is the human being ready to live what truly matters. The fountain of faith gushes from a sculpture of a blindfolded woman holding a chalice. Why blindfolded? Because faith is belief without evidence. It's the central paradox of this entire sanctuary. You climb seeking proof of the divine, but the architect tells you that the journey is about abandoning the need for proof. There are accounts of pilgrims who, upon reaching the final section, enter states of spontaneous trance. Some find rouge. Others break down in uncontrollable tears without knowing why. In 1863, a local doctor named Dr. Antonio de Azevedo documented cases of penitential ecstasy among worshippers who completed the ascent. He described symptoms that today we would recognize as dissociative experiences: loss of sense of time, a sensation of being outside the body, visions of intense light. The doctor, a skeptic by nature, admitted in his diaries that he witnessed phenomena for which he had no medical explanation. At the top, finally, the church rises: neoclassical, sober, almost restrained, white, almost too simple after all the Baroque drama of the ascent. Why this brutal change of style? It doesn't compete with the path. It completes it, because the Baroque is the path exuberant, tortuous, full of pain and beauty. But the destination is simplicity, silence, white as the absence of color, as emptiness, where everything dissolves. Here, silence speaks louder than any sermon. It's not a place to ask, it's a place to understand. Inside the church, there is a single image of the crucified Christ, but his features are strangely serene. There is no agony. It is as if he has already traversed suffering and reached something beyond. And then you realize, this was your journey, too. You started down there, carrying weight, went through the purification of the senses, embraced the virtues, and now you stand before something that cannot be explained, only felt. But there's a bitter irony in this whole story. In 1882, something unusual emerged. A water-powered funicular railway, the oldest in the Iberian Peninsula, still in operation. It takes people to the top, effortlessly, without purification, without transformation. You can simply sit and be carried along. And this raises an uncomfortable question. If there's no ascent, is there transformation? Many visitors today do exactly that. They photograph the panoramic view, post it on social media, and descend. They've completely missed the point. Bom Jesus has always offered two paths, but only one of them demands surrender. Archaeologists recently discovered that Bom Jesus was built upon the ruins of an ancient pre-Roman temple. Beneath the Christian foundations, there are traces of ancestral cults to the mother goddess, fertility rituals, and sacrifices. Was it a coincidence that this location was chosen, or are there places on Earth where the veil between worlds is thinner, where the sacred manifests itself independently of the religion practiced there? The hill did not become sacred when the church was erected. It was already sacred. The church merely recognized what already existed. Now comes the question no one asks. Why build such a grand sanctuary so far from the main pilgrimage routes? Santiago de Compostela is days' walk away. Rome, unreachable for most. Bom Jesus de Monte was designed to be difficult to reach, so that the journey there would be part of the penance. You don't go to Bom Jesus casually. You go because you need to, because something inside you demands this ascent. There's a local legend that few know. They say that whoever climbs the entire staircase on their knees in the early hours of Good Friday hears voices. Not human voices but chants that come from the stones themselves. Longtime residents of Braga swear they've heard echoes of hymns emanating from the mountain on certain nights. Acoustic hallucination, wind between the chapels, or memory imbued in the material, as if the granite had absorbed 3 centuries of prayers and was returning them in whispers. Throughout the centuries, pilgrims have reported healings, fulfilled vows, and profound changes. But the sanctuary never promised miracles. It offers something rarer, an encounter with oneself. Perhaps that is why, even today, people still climb in silence, some barefoot, others on their knees. Not because someone demanded it, but because something within them demands it. In 2019, the world finally recognized what pilgrims had known for centuries. Bom Jesus do Monte became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But its true value lies not in titles. It lies in what each person carries with them upon descending, because some places weren't made to be visited. They were made to be traversed. So, dear traveler of the sacred routes, I ask you one last question. What really happens when you climb that staircase? Are you moving through the mountain? Or is the mountain moving through you? And perhaps the true sanctuary is not at the top of the mountain, but in what you left behind during the climb. Comment below which sacred place you would like us to explore in our next episode. And if you feel your soul needs places like this, subscribe to the channel because there is so much more to discover on the paths where the sacred and the inexplicable meet. Bom Jesus do Monte is not a destination. It is a vertical transformation, a staircase that doesn't end at the top of the hill, but at the top of who you can become.